So you've been scrolling social media, going to parties, chatting with friends, and you find that it feels like everyone's posting about their retirement and these exotic trips that they're going on and all the fun they're having during retirement. Yet you still find yourself hitting the alarm clock every morning and going to work. And you're wondering if you're feeling left behind, right? And what do you do about that? That's what we're going to talk about today.
This is the Money Master Podcast.
Welcome back to the Money Master Podcast, everyone. I'm Connie here with certified financial planners Tori Tenhagen and Nick Davis, and we're so glad that you're joining us today. So today we're going to talk about retirement dates, and people often boast about their retirement and kind of maybe embellish how great it is, and maybe they're leaving out some of the details that don't make it so glamorous. And you're not quite there yet, and it has you feeling like maybe you're falling behind, right? Do you guys hear that often in the office? What am I talking about here?
They need to catch up, right? A lot of people are ready to retire a lot of times when you're working and you're like, man, how many more years I got to retirement, you know?
Yeah, we compare ourselves to each other. We want to know where we're at in relationship to another. We get a lot of questions. People say, how do I compare to
How do I measure up?
other people? And the answer is it doesn't matter how you compare to other people. You're running your own journey, but you're specifically talking about people who feel like it seems like others are doing better than me, right? And then I kind of feel like I have to work forever.
All my friends are retiring, but how come I'm not there yet?
Yeah. So we're going to talk about the misconceptions of that and maybe the misperceptions.
Right.
Right. So the Social Security data says that the average retirement age is 62, which sounds about right. But in your experience, day to day, this is what you do. How much variation do you see actually in retirement dates as far as like the age?
I would say a wide range. I mean, we've seen there
Yeah.
probably is a median, like a common average. But I mean, yeah, some people want to retire really, really young because they've saved and they're done.
Yeah.
Some people really, whether they have to or just want to work and, don't retire early.
It doesn't feel like a lot of people retire at 62 to me, if that's what the data shows. But, it seems like it really depends. They come in here, they meet with us with their own idea of when they want to retire. I would say we see more people retiring closer to 65, 66, 67. And then there's plenty of people that are retiring in their late 50s, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely spread across the board. It's definitely a date that, people don't like to set, or some people do, but once you set the date, we've talked a lot about it being flexible. And even when you do set a date, a lot of times you end up changing it. And there's lots of
I'm going to say we also have people who are working way past 67, some to 70, 72. And that's just, I like my job. I don't want to quit, or I feel like I need to. It just depends.
Obviously a wide range of ages, but what are some of the factors that determine those differences?
Well, I'm going to say the first one that comes to mind, especially with the people who are working even later, is sometimes they just like their job. Sometimes they don't want to. They're not the ones playing the comparison game that we're really talking about, because they just like working and they want to stay at their job. It gives them something to do. Yeah. And then sometimes they might do part-time, or, like they may partially retire so they can just stay doing something they enjoy.
Or their health is a big one, or taking care of a family member. Sometimes it'll be, my health's not what it used to be. I can tell I need to enjoy life. So, I'd like to get this thing going and get retired. That may dictate it. Like Tori was saying, on the opposite side, people may say, I'm getting paid more than I've ever gotten paid in my entire life, so it's hard to quit. Yeah. But it definitely is a range. But I think, when you say you feel like other people are retiring before you, it's because people tend to be, you don't really know what's going on in their life.
Right.
You don't know their backstory.
Right.
And the grass is always greener on the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone has a reason for the decision to go ahead and call it or keep working. There's more than one factor.
Right. And also with Social Security, there's a full retirement age based on their birth year, right? So do people kind of tend to stick to that, or has that kind of gone away, or it doesn't really
That's a question on people's mind, I think, with when they're going to claim Social Security, and should I work until I get to that age? And then Medicare is another one. I would say a lot of people work to 65 because they need that insurance, and they don't want to pay for, they're covered at work,
right?
And they don't want to retire before then, because then they'd have to find something in the meantime. So that's another motivator.
Hey there, this is a quick break to talk about how you pay yourself in retirement. People often ask about how much they're going to be able to spend each month from their savings when they're no longer working. You may have heard of the 4% rule, the bucket strategy, or nameless others, but none of them do a good job measuring your true spending capacity. That is, how much can you afford to spend each month confidently? I wrote a white paper you might want to read. It's about a guardrail system for retirement that can help you do better in retirement. And I think it's probably the best withdrawal strategy available. There's no cost to download and read it. If you want a copy, all you have to do is text the word income to our business line at 214-988-9178. That's it, just the word income, and send it to 214-988-9178. And we'll send that paper about guardrails straight to you.
Okay. Well, let's talk about perception and reality, right? Especially when it comes to social media, because a lot of people are on social media. They're scrolling through their pages and they're seeing their friends retiring or going on these exotic trips. And we all know that people post the highlights of their life on social media, right? So, that creates a lot of pressure for someone. Even I stopped scrolling on social media a lot because I have all these advertisements of buy this. And I'm like, I'm done. I'm done, right? So how does that play in for someone who's near retiring?
I mean, I think it's your perception of how sure you are in your goals, right? That's either going to deter you and make you want to retire, or no, I know what I want. I know I'm in my lane, kind of.
Yeah.
But it does affect. I mean, people want a vacation and travel, and if work is holding you back from that, then obviously you're comparing, right?
Yeah.
I think there's a disproportionate amount of people who comment, though. Like, I've heard arguments about this about, Twitter, X, the worst types of people tend to comment the worst things all the time. I think the same thing is true maybe in retirement. If you've done really good and you're going to retire at 55, you tend to want to talk about it. It makes you feel good to talk about it. So you'll comment on a YouTube video, or maybe even just your personality type too. You might be the personality type that's really outgoing and bubbly and always, or you might be the kind that's braggadocious, that type A. So you're basically reading those things, but you're not hearing about all the normal people who do it. And I think that the key here is it's being perceived as though you retire at this time and you stop working. And that's just not really what happens. What really happens is there's a blend of ages, somewhere between 62 and 70 for most people. And that factor changes depending upon how your life changes. So many people have told us, I'm going to retire at 65, or you pick the date. And then it's like, well, no, I'm going to wait until January now. Well, no, I'm going to wait until August because of the bonus, right? Or something happens to change that. And that's okay. But you just have to be aware that we always say this, pick a date that you're going to retire so you have something to work off of, but then know that it's going to be flexible, and
life's going to happen.
Yeah. Don't be deceived by what people are saying. Most people don't stop working at 55, uber rich, and then pay for their health care until they're 65.
Right. Yeah.
Most people don't.
Okay. So what I hear you saying is pretty much everybody has a unique situation, right? Like they have that date in mind. I'm going to retire at X date, but then life happens, and oh my gosh, maybe they have an illness, or something happens with a child,
parent,
grandchild,
Yeah.
and life changes, right? So they accustom, they shift.
Yeah. You might be paying off a toy. You might be paying off more toys, or you want something else.
Right.
You have your own desire. Yeah. Everybody has their own desire, right? That's why it's important to go through the exercises to actually ask yourself, what do you want? So that you can set that, chart that course, So yeah, you have to take into account that there's unique situations.
So let's shift to a practical side. What are some questions that people can ask themselves? What are the important financial questions?
Well, the first would be a kind of a mindset question of, yes, you can, anybody can go in and say I'm retiring tomorrow, right? But can you sustain that? So it's not a race to get there. It's not I'm going to get there first and okay, they've done it, so now I need to catch up and do it. It's once you do it, can you sustain it?
Yeah.
You want to be retired and stay retired if that's your goal. Some people want to work part-time, like I said, or do something for fun, but the goal is to sustain your retirement.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So the answer is a sound plan, which involves, do I understand my retirement income? Do I understand where it's going to come from? Do I understand, how I'm going to make those adjustments? As Tori was saying, is it going to sustain me? Have I accounted for inflation and the ability to cover my health care? A lot of times people will say, well, I think I could retire now, but I feel a little bit like I'm being too risky with my health care. Maybe I won't be able to cover that. And maybe they need to investigate it just a little bit more so that they feel more secure about that area. But if you identify, hey, that's where I feel weak, let's go make sure that that's not as weak as I think it is, or how can I strengthen that? And then it can help you to kind of arrive on that feeling like you're ready to retire.
Well, and I think being honest with your goals for retirement, because that is a issue too, that people retire and then, okay, it's here and I don't know what I want to do. I don't know how, and you'd end up not enjoying it. And so if you're going to get there, be honest with the goals that you want to spend your time with, the travel and the thing, make sure that's built into part of your plan as well.
Yep.
Yeah. And what about if somebody wants to work longer? I know you touched on that a little bit earlier, but not everybody wants to, or some people want to work longer, but they feel that the perception of other people is like, why would you want to do that? Or why are you doing that?
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, what do you advise to someone who wants to work longer?
Well, I mean, like I mentioned just now about having goals in retirement, people get there sometimes and they're like, don't know what to do themselves. It gives you something to do. It does give you a community. Like if you like your work environment and you like your job, it is a benefit to stay engaged.
I remember years ago, a guy named Craig retired, and he said, like 6 months later, he's like, okay, I've taken the major couple of trips. I've gone fishing a bunch of times. I finished the honey-do list. I drive the grandkids around. Now what do I do with myself? Like, what am I supposed to do with myself? Like, you didn't prepare me for this.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
So working longer has a lot of benefits. I mean, just from a practical standpoint.
Well, and some people choose to go from full-time to part-time, or even, being like a contractor. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say a good percentage of people phase their retirement like that. They end up doing consulting. We just retired a lady this year who, she's no longer a wage employee, W-2. She now gets she gets paid contract, and she's enjoying the fewer hours. And they just took off for a month to go to Florida, in December. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So they don't have to be around for work.
Yeah. So as we kind of wrap this episode up, if you could give one piece of advice to someone who's feeling uncertain about their retirement timeline, what might it be?
Only one.
Just one thing. Just one thing. One line.
We can make a whole episode about this, but just one for together.
I think it comes down to getting your most pressing questions answered. You know what those questions are. And one of those questions is, what do I not know? That also comes up a lot. So if you do the work to get those most pressing questions answered, that's kind of me hacking your one thing, because it's like, well, what are those questions?
Multifaceted.
Yeah. Probably, I guess if I had to kind of refine this down, you'd have to take some sort of action to get those questions answered.
Mine would be that when you're feeling left behind, when you're on social media and feeling that, use that as a chance to kind of reframe and reorient your goals of like, okay, well, if I want to be retired, could I today? What's lacking that needs to get me there? Or what is my goal? If I'm going to work a few more years, what's my why behind that to keep me focused?
Yeah, that's really great. Thank you guys for sharing. Hopefully you guys listening or watching this episode found some of these things to be helpful. And if you have, we encourage you, share it with someone else who you feel like it would benefit as well. And definitely do us a favor and hit the subscribe button, because that helps other people just like you to find our channel and listen to this helpful information. If you'd like to visit with our team, you can go to brindleandbay.com. And until next time, enjoy your day.
Nick Davis is an investment advisor representative of Brindle Bay Financial Advisors, a registered investment advisor. This show is for informational purposes only. Any references to client experiences made may be deemed to be indirect testimonials. Clients were not compensated for providing any testimonial statements. Any references to client experiences are for illustrative purposes only. Actual client experiences will vary. Any exposure to ideas and financial vehicles discussed should not be considered financial advice or recommendation to buy or sell a financial vehicle. You should consult a qualified financial tax or legal professional before taking any action. This program is not endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency. Brindle Bay Wealth Management is affiliated with Brindle Bay Financial Advisors.